lounging, son.
Well, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Manny.
We're back with another episode of the Weekly Pull, where we talk about some of our favorite books. Obviously, it's not all our favorite books because a lot of comics that are coming out, but these are the books we wanted to spotlight this week. Got some good stuff about. So we got 4 books. I think we're going to try to stick to that format of 4 from now on. Some cool stuff coming out this week. So. Love and Rockets is the first book we're going to talk about. Always a treat when this book comes out, because this is not something that comes out on a regular basis by any means. We're in 2023, and you can look at the art that Jaime signs, and it was done in 2022.
Yeah, I noticed that, and like I like that about it, because like it's like one of the books I don't really
love this cover.
Check for. So like as soon as I got to the shop, and like he doesn't order a lot of these. I think there's maybe like one other person in the entirety of Cape Coral, Florida, that reads Love and Rockets. Because I only see 2 copies, and they're behind the counter, so I know I should ask for the other ones for. It'd be interesting.
Yeah,
but yeah, I get excited, man. Because it's like a nice like, it's like the icing on the cake. Love and Rockets is like one of the greatest comic book series ever. And it's great that it's being done, in its original like large format, which it ran for a while. So I'm always excited when it comes out.
Yeah, dude, I think it's just awesome. Like I've talked to each one of them separately on the channel, and it's just cool to see. Whilst they've branched out and done other things in comics,
yes,
they've never like done an extensive run really on anything. Like I'm sure if they had wanted to, they could have. Like I was reading that Catwoman omnibus, right? Recently, the Brubaker stuff, and Jaime had a pinup in the back of Catwoman, and all I could think of was like, man, I would love even just like a mini series of Jaime doing Catwoman or anything.
Yeah, dude.
I love the way he draws women. Gilbert's done. I think Gilbert's probably done more stuff outside of Love and Rockets than Jaime. Jaime's done maybe some short stories, and he's done pinups.
Yeah, Gilbert's had a couple a couple of things at Dark Horse that are not like Love and Rockets related. Like one graphic novel that I have, I forget the title, but it's really good. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, they branch out.
Yeah. So, but like you said, like it's always a treat when a new issue comes out, and I love that it's still the format of like you get multiple stories within each issue. I think they're about 48 pages or close.
Yeah, you get like
I'm sorry. This one they're 32. This one's 32, but it's 32 pages of story.
Yeah, and some are like 4 or 5 pages. Like they vary in length.
Yeah, and I love
that's the Archie Comics influence.
That's definitely the Archie influence. So yeah. I love that. I love we get a story with Maggie, and we get introduced to a new character. I love when we get new characters from Jaime stuff, right? So we got Brown Alice is the new one, So I mean, just like he has such a way of doing these like kind of small moments that are just so great. Like just as simple as like Maggie going to get a haircut, right? She gets a haircut. She's like, no, I've been there, done that. And then so she goes a little bit shorter, and it's just like it's just those 3 panels, dude, are just
that was one of my favorite things he's drawn in a while,
Yeah, and then this one too, like when she's
but I love how Maggie's older, but she still has like that kind of punk rock personality, because I like when she's like, okay, any shorter, and I start throwing bottles. You know what I mean? Like it makes them like such real characters, and we talked about it before we recorded. Like I wasn't reading Love and Rockets when it was coming out. You know what I mean? I was a little young to be aware of like indie comics, and I've read it sporadically over the years. But you really do feel like these characters, because you've seen them age, and like seen the families grow and their relationships change, and it's always great to revisit them.
I totally agree. It's something that I was late to the game on. Like it's been a few years since I've read Love and Rockets, but I went back and I basically read everything. There's probably a few, like maybe 3 volumes of Gilbert stuff that I didn't read because I connected more with Jaime's work and the Maggie and Hopi stuff. So like I've read all his stuff, but I just I continue to love it. And you're like you said, you begin to know them, and you begin like it's almost like I think when we talked with Eric Larson, where like the characters write themselves. I mean, the characters are probably writing themselves with Jaime too, and same with Gilbert. Like they've taken on a life of their own. And I love this part too. Like you're seeing an older Maggie, right? She's just a stripper pole, and she goes up and she can't do it. I thought that was pretty funny. And then definitely the Archie influence, like with the stars above their head, and like the
Yes, yeah,
movement with
yeah.
the running and stuff like that. I just really dig that, and I love Tonta. I love she's a great character. She's been really fun to
Yeah,
kind of
I
follow.
really grown to love her a lot,
Yeah,
you know, like, and I love that he keeps he's almost making her one of the main characters now, you know, like she's a big part of almost all every story.
yeah. I mean, she had her own. There was a collection. It was just basically her stuff, right? Like, so they live in the same apartment complex and stuff like that. And I know that Ray, Maggie's significant other, is a teacher at the school where Tonto goes.
Yeah.
So I like that. We get the introduction of a new character, and then we go back. You jump forward. We go to Gilbert's stuff and the Fritz and all that all those characters. I always dig those. Those are always kind of like funny stories because his art is like he definitely exaggerates the way their body is, and I think I don't know. I find it
Yes.
kind of amusing, but I love these characters, dude. I love how we've seen the thing about it too is you don't see it as much with Jaime, but the generational aspect that you see with Gilbert stuff, where this is a
Yes.
legacy of like families that started in Palomar and has come to the U.S. and it's like different branches of the family members and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I love that he also does within his stuff. You have those like the B movies that Fritz does, right? So he has those
I was
collections
gonna
where
say, yeah, that's one of my favorite things too, is that like he'll actually like do the B movie itself. He's done specials that are just like, you know, where Fritz is in it, but she's not Fritz. She's a character that she plays in the movie, you know, and like
yeah.
all that stuff is great.
So yeah, I mean, it's a great one, dude. And like, look, you talk about like the different lengths of stories, right? So you got that Fritz story, but then you go and you have literally a one-page story. And that one was
Yes.
done in 2022, right? So the story prior to it was 2023, and then you have this one-page story where they're talking about just writing a song, and
I love it. I mean, like they're so good at everything, like the brevity of the one pagers, like the complexity of like these essentially ongoing like 30-year-old stories. Like they love getting a new Love and Rockets fan is such a pleasure because it's like a very it's their own world and it's really unlike any other comic book out there.
it's so cool that they're still doing it, dude. And I
Yes,
think it's
yeah.
much like, and I already mentioned Eric Larson, but it's much like that. Like this is what they want to do. They want to make comics,
Hmm.
and they make comics, dude. And that's what their life's dream was, and that's what they've continued to do for over 40 years, right? Like
Yeah.
Love and Rockets just celebrated 40th anniversary, but they were creating comics before that. It's not like that comic was like the first time they ever did something. Maybe the first time it was published, and I really, like I said, I like this character, Brown Alice. I love that they're like going hiking up in the hills, and just like the way he depicts like the sweat beads, the drool coming out of her mouth because like the breathing heavy,
Yeah.
or whether she's like upside down in the bushes, like, or yeah, upside down in the bushes right here, the running right here.
Yeah, yeah,
It
that's
is
great.
it is like you really see the Archie influence, the Harry Lucy stuff more with Jaime. But
Yes.
it is really great, dude. And I love the there's another story where like Gilbert's story where Petra is like walking and she sees this kid that she saw at a party and she just squeezes the shit out of him, and then he fucking is getting a fucking boner and stuff is his face.
Yeah.
Um that's the difference. I think Gilbert like leads more into like the like sexual kind of jokes, right? And sexualizing his
Yeah.
characters more so than Jaime. But that's not to say that that's all he does. But I definitely think that he has a little bit of a darker sense of humor than Jaime. That's where you
Yes.
get the difference, like with their stuff. Like they complement each other very well, but they stand out very different and apart from one another, which I like. And then I
I
go ahead.
I love that they each do like the one will do the front cover and then you've got the back cover too. So like you know
And
that
then with the
you get like
Fantagraphics edition directly, it's the reverse. Gilbert
yeah,
will, or one of them will do the front, and then whoever did the like the
yeah,
Fantagraphics one for this one, Gilbert did the cover and Jaime did the back one.
yeah.
And I really like this the Animus storyline that's been going on in the back with like Anima and stuff like that. It's got a little bit more of like a sci-fi bend to it, like
Yeah.
kind of calling back to their roots and stuff, which is what they did a lot more of that kind of experimental stuff in the beginning. Even with like
Yeah.
Maggie the Mechanic, and And then you finish off with a 2-pager by Gilbert. But it's such a great comic. It's, like for this to come out and it only be $5.
I was gonna say, dude, the 49, the 4.99 like price point is great, man. You get like a really nice, it's the paper stock, the card stock is great.
Yeah.
It's one of the better deals, and like it's a no-brainer. I think everyone that loves comics should have Love and Rockets on their pull list. Like,
same here, dude. I mean, look, this could easily, if it was like DC or Marvel, this would be like a $6-7 book. Just
yeah, dude. If this was like, yeah, this would be like what DC sells a Black Label book, which is like at the bare minimum $5.99. So like usually more like $6 to $7.99.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, they keep it affordable, man. I mean, like that's indie books have always been a little bit pricier anyway because they gotta they're not as they don't sell as much as mainstream. So for Love and Rocket going on fucking 40 years, still being under $5 technically for 32 pages of story, cardstock covers, oversized format, it's a fucking deal, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious to know, like you said, like you don't have a lot of subs at your shop. I know that at my shop we don't have a lot. I think there was like six or seven, and I don't know if we're even getting shelf copies anymore. I know that we
I don't
were.
think he is my shop because I don't see any on the shelf. I don't, So.
Yeah, I know we were, but I don't like. I didn't look in the indie section yesterday when I was at work. But even like the trades, I was like, there was when I was working there more, like full time and stuff, and we didn't have any. I was like, why don't we have Love and Rockets? And he didn't have an answer for me. And he's like, well, go order them, stock up. And I was like, dude, we should always have Love and Rockets. We should always have some Love and Rockets trades because I can recommend them and sell them. But if I don't have them to sell, I can't.
And that's a great title to sell to someone that might want to get into comics but doesn't want to get into superheroes. Like I know for a lot of women, Love and Rockets wasn't into the comics. Like when I was in high school, the person that told me about Love and Rockets was one of my best friends, Sarah. Like she was this punk rock girl. So it has an appeal for a different crowd.
Yeah, also. Totally. No, it's a great book, and it's there's so many different ways you can collect it. I can't recommend it enough. So I definitely think that go pick this book up, man. It's definitely worth checking out, even if you've never read it before.
I love it, man. It's fantastic, and I mean, what is it, quarterly essentially now? I mean, every 4 times a year,
something like that. But yeah, no, great issue, and I'm excited to talk about this next book, Nightwing, which has been I'll say it, it's been my favorite book at DC. It's tied with World's Finest. This book is just from the very first issue, and we talked about it when we talked about the first volume. Like it just hit the ground running immediately, and it hasn't kind of let up since. It's consistently been like my favorite book to pick up, and I think we're almost. I mean, we're nearing the 30 issue mark of him writing it, I think, because I think it was like in the 70s, like 77. I don't know. I can't remember the exact number. It's not important, but we're on issue 103 of Nightwing. And I love this cover.
Dude, yeah, the cover is great.
The covers
has been kicking ass with the covers lately.
Covers
they're very visually arresting.
They're so different, but they're great. Like they're not your typical cover. I mean, look at this. It's literally a spin rack of postcards.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's how he depicts it. You got the fucking home of the Titans, greetings, from Bloodhaven.
And you got like the old schooler like Nightwing logo on that one there, like.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic, dude. This is such a great cover, and the interiors match. What a great story. We're in hell. That's where we left off. I think we did talk about this issue last time. I think it was your pick last month when it came out.
Yeah, because like they were gonna go like pull a heist in hell, which is just and like what a great concept. And like again, what I'm really loving is like the relationships in Nightwing between like Dick and like the rest of the Titans, and like how, to me, like they are a more interesting unit to follow than the League, because like you said, they were friends. You were the one that said it. They were friends before they were a team, and that's something that Tom Taylor is like embedding in his stories. So these are people that are gonna be there for each other, like in more ways than like your typical superhero team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like half the team became more of that family unit later, but if you just look at the core of like what the Titans were in the beginning, which was Roy Harper, Donna Troy, Garth, Aqualad, and then Wally and Dick, right? And so they grew up together, and then you introduce Cyborg and Beast Boy and Raven, and they have equally become just as much a part of this family unit as the original Titans, because like they've also been through a lot, especially like when you go back and you look at the Deathstroke stuff, and you look at the stuff with Terra and the, you know, all that storyline from the George Perez, Mark Wolfman stuff, and it just continues. And even though, you know, like there's been so many reboots and stuff like that, I think finally DC, when they did Rebirth, they got back to the core of what made the characters who they were. You know, like, yes, there was a few good things from New 52, but they essentially took out a lot of legacy stuff of DC. And I think it's so prevalent just in this book alone. And you have like Neron and stuff, and he's going after this 9-year-old girl, which is, you know, her name's Olivia, and she's the daughter of Blockbuster. Right.
And I and you find out they mentioned who the mother is in this book. I don't know if that was mentioned before. At least I wasn't aware.
It wasn't mentioned.
It's Jezebel Jet, which is like one of Bruce Wayne's exes.
Yeah, I know that. That's kind of interesting.
And it's one of the most interesting exchanges, I think, when Nightwing's like, yeah, her mom's you know, Jezebel Jet, one of Bruce's exes, and like they're like she and Batman were a thing. What is like Beast Boy was like, Batman really has a type, huh? You ever talk to him about the people he dates? And Nightwing's like, I couldn't imagine anything more uncomfortable, and I'm literally standing in hell. Like, that made me laugh out loud. You know, I was like, Tom Taylor is so good at dialogue like that too.
Oh, hell yeah, he's so good. I gotta just say real quick though, like Travis Moore is the artist of the book, so he's the one that kind of tag teams with Bruno Redondo, but his style is so complementary to Redondo's art as well that it doesn't ever feel jarring. And then you have Vasco Georgie or Georgiev. I don't know how to. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that, but he does art on page 5 and then 13 through 18. So I love, you know, the back and forth, because, you know, we are in hell. Neron's with, I've never heard of Blaze before. She's a character that I'm not sure if she's new or not, but she's like kind of going against Neron. And then you have the girls. You have Batgirl, Starfire, and Donna Troy, and they got Olivia and they're taking her to Themyscira. And then they end up training her. And I love that, dude. Like, it just, I don't know. There's just something like that made me smile when I read the book. Like, it just, I think every time I read this book, I leave with a smile on my face, because there's just something about, even when it's like some serious shit going on, it just there's still always that level of joy, and that I think is so important, because that's where he's different than Batman. You know, he does, like we've talked about, that he doesn't have that weight and that fucking darkness clouding over him. He always has like a more of a positive outlook on everything. So I think that's kind of cool that the book kind of exudes that as well.
And a lot of cool, I mean, a lot of stuff happens in this issue. You know, you have the Grinning Man, you know, attacking the girls over, and then you have, you know, the setup here at the end with Nightwing getting tempted by Neron is really great too, man. You know, and like the final image is such a cool look. You know, like basically, you know, Neron is like, you know, I know you're a good guy, Dick. You know, but like imagine if you had like the powers of a Kryptonian, or like, you know, the speed force of the Flash. Like, how much good could you do in the world with that? And, you know, he's tempting him because, you know, Neron wants to, you know, win over one on Blockbuster, and he thinks that, you know, he's almost like wanting to team up with Nightwing.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like he uses like this contract, right? Like where he, like, Neron's like, well, I have her soul, and he's like, well, you didn't get both parents, and like, well, the mom's decapitated, so I can't. And then what does Nightwing do? I mean, it's brilliant. He
went to law school, didn't he? Like for a while, Dick, I think.
I think so. Yeah, but he basically makes himself a legal guardian, and he stole that contract from hell. That's why it's glowing and shit. And I just thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, like there's a cool little cliffhanger. I won't like kind of say it, but you know, he just talks about like, you know, you struggle as a mortal man and stuff like that, and you know, all these people you're with amazing powers, and I guess whatever.
The costume that Dick's wearing.
Yeah, spoiler alert. But he basically is like, you know, he's like, well, how much could you achieve if I connect you to the Speed Force, or how much good could you do with the strength of a Kryptonian? Let me give you a taste. And
I love power to change the world.
Yeah, I love that, dude. And that is kind of a cool costume. It kind of harkens back a little bit to like his costume in the 80s with like that yellow on the boots and the gloves. So yeah, what a great issue, dude. And you know, you got another backup story with Nightwing and John Kent. by
Yeah, the
CS.
backups
Okay.
continue to be a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
I like having those little extra pages and that little extra story. Like, it's very, it makes a book unique.
Yeah, I would love if it continued to where maybe I don't know if it needs to be this many parts, but maybe like
Yeah.
two-parters, or I guess three-parters would be cool too, where he's like Nightwing when somebody else, almost like a Brave and the Bold type thing, but
Well, yes, yeah,
With Nightwing in that place, because it's cool because he's like the most, quote unquote connected character between
yeah.
the rest of the DC universe. Like he has a little bit of his imprint on every aspect, every corner, because all the relationships that he's built over his entire history. But what a great fucking book, dude. I mean,
And it's so nicely printed. I mean, I don't read a lot of other DC books, but I feel like there's something special about Nightwing. Like it just feels paper stock feels really good.
DC Prince has the best print quality between the two. I think
Yeah,
Marvel at times, dude, their fucking paper is like
it's a glossy.
it's
I like this sort of matte paper that DC
well,
uses.
yeah, not just that. Yeah, I love the matte, but I'm talking about like even just the thickness of the paper. There's been times where Marvel has
Yeah,
come out with a comic book where like I'm reading it, and if it's like even just a little warm, like my fucking fingers will like stick to the pages,
yeah, yeah, and like yeah,
and
you can
it's like
like see
toilet
through the. You
paper.
hold the pages up, you can see through them.
It's
Like
almost
you
like
can't.
toilet paper, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can't say enough good things about Nightwing. I really want to talk the second
And again,
volume.
I love this page. One of my favorite pages recently, like just like the layout, like the use of the automatopoeia, like
Yeah,
every
it's
issue after issue is just good, man. And it really has become one of the ones that I look forward to reading the most.
I stayed up a little later to read it, but like usually, like if I'm tired, like I have a hard time keeping my eyes open, but not with Nightwing. Nightwing like was easy to kind of stay on path with. Everybody, if you haven't picked up Nightwing, go pick up the book. Next book we're going to talk about is a Warlock Rebirth. Not a book I would normally pick up, if I'm being completely honest with you, because I don't pick up a lot of these quote unquote like nostalgia books is what I call them. But I have to say, I'm a sucker for the Marvel Comics logo.
Yeah,
So when I was
the
walking,
the cover dress, had me, and I also do love Adam Warlock. As a
I
kid,
know nothing. I know
as a
nothing
kid,
about
I
Adam
was,
Warlock.
Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, and Infinity Crusade, like were all coming out when I was at the height of my reading comics, as a kid, and like they don't use them in the MCU at all in any of that, but Adam Warlock was a huge part of like the whole like Thanos like storyline in the comics, so he had become one of my favorite characters, and I've always loved him visually, and I love the cosmic stuff, so when I saw it, I was on board.
Yeah, for me, it's like I know of the character. I know the character. I mean, obviously, but I've never read any of the books. I've only read Infinity Gauntlet. I've never read any of the other ones that came out after. It's just not something like I didn't even read Infinity Gauntlet up until like maybe 6 years ago. Like it was just a book that it just wasn't something I picked up for whatever reason. Obviously I was more willing to check this book out because I knew you were going to pick it up, and I figured, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about something different. Let me pick something up that I normally would kind of just pass by. And even yesterday going to the shop, I wasn't sure I was going to pick it up, but the logo the logo was what I
The
was like, all
logo.
right, fuck it, I'll read it. And I used like the creative team, Ron Lim. Ron Mars used to be one of my favorite writers.
Yeah, I
He
mean
was
Green Lantern, he wrote forever.
yeah, that Green Lantern run was one of my favorite. I mean, it was one of my favorite comics when it was coming out. I love
Yeah.
Kyle Rayner. And then Ron Lim, dude, I loved his stuff, Silver Surfer. He
Yeah.
used to do a lot more stuff in the 90s. So he was again one of my favorite artists when I was a kid. While this is, I don't know, I can't tell. It is set. All of it is set in the past, right? So it's not a
Yes,
current
yeah.
book. So things are definitely
And
not
it's
in the
vague about
future.
the past. So like that's one thing I liked about it is that you don't really have to, if you grew up reading, the Ron Lim era of Surfer and like the whole cosmic like line, you can pick this book up and you're gonna be able to jump right in. I mean, it does a little bit of a recap of Adam's origin, and it gets the ball rolling. But there's a lot I liked about this issue. I like the setting on Monster Island. I always love seeing Monster Island. Like it's one of my. I love kaiju's and like big monsters and all that. So I
Mhm.
love that Marvel has that in their universe, and you get a little bit of a Kirby vibe with some of the creatures that you meet at the beginning. And like from the beginning, it's also
kind of humorous, which I appreciated. Like, you know, there's a humor to the book that I really like.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun read. I wasn't
Yeah, Pit
disappointed.
the Troll, you know, like, you know, you
Like
got
this,
Gamora in here.
like I'm gonna be completely honest. The book didn't blow me away. You know, it wasn't, but it was a fun read. It was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's kind of like maybe I should pick up some of those old, like
Yeah,
those nostalgia type books where it's set in the past, because like this is kind, it's nice every once in a while to read something that's not connected to the main line. Even though if you ask me, I would say like most of Marvel doesn't seem very connected, like it has
yeah,
in the past. Like it all feels like very, I don't want to say disjointed, but there used to be a very cohesiveness to the Marvel universe, especially like in the
yes,
2000s. And I was talking about that with Bendis actually the other day when I interviewed him. Like, you know, when they were writing that the architects, as they called it, what is Fraction, it was Jason Aaron, it was Brubaker, it was Bendis, and it was, you know, they were all like friends, all talking together constantly, like, so everything felt connected. But you know, these kind of books are fun because they're just old fashioned superhero comics, you know, like
no,
Pigeon.
I get what you're saying.
But you know what I mean? It's just like a
It's not bogged
fun.
down by a lot of like current continuity. You know, it's just sort of embracing the concept and giving it to you like in a very accessible manner. You
Yeah.
got the introduction of like, you know, of Eve Warlock, like a great, you know, great concept to pair with Adam Warlock. It's just a fun comic, and I had a great time reading it. And
The spec
you
book of
know,
the week, dude. It's the spec book
yeah,
of
it
the
is.
week.
So
I mean,
I'm
I
on
don't.
board for the rest of it, man. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and I like seeing an old Gamora, and like you said, you have a 1 page recap of Adam Warlock that gives you
Yeah.
just what you need to know. Like, obviously, he started out as I forgot, was it him, right?
Yeah, him. Yeah, he
When
was supposed
he
to be like the perfect human almost.
right. So that was in Fantastic Four, which is where he was introduced. But obviously, I think the majority of people, much like yourself, of our age group, right, would think of him from the Infinity stuff, all that
Yeah.
with Thanos. So yeah, I think it does give you just enough. And I don't know if I said this to you before or not, but whatever. You know, he's going to be in the Guardians movie, so like I was like, well,
Yeah.
I kind of would like to. I don't like going in blindly with characters, not knowing very much about them. Even though like the first Guardians movie, I didn't know a ton about those characters, but I did read the Abnett and Lanning stuff when they did the Annihilation book.
I
You
like
know,
this page too. There's some cool, like I love pages with a lot of panels, and I've
yeah.
always loved like this kind of like panel structure, like a lot of symmetrical, equally sized panels across the page. It's you know, it's great. Like Ron Lim's art has changed over the years.
Yeah, it's not as tight. The pencils don't feel as tight. They feel a lot looser. That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking
which
because I haven't read a
yeah,
lot of, or I haven't read any books with Ron Lim in it,
maybe it's the
recently.
inker. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and see who was inking him back
Don
in the
Ho
day.
was inking on this book, but yeah, I don't know who inked
Yeah,
him back in the day.
but you're
But you
right.
know,
I mean, I couldn't put my finger on why it felt different, but now you mentioned that the art is looser. It is, you know, and but I like it. It fits the vibe of the book, you know, like it's
yeah.
you know, when his art was tighter, I think it was supposed to be a little bit more gritty, and like this seems like it's, you know, I mean, there's still some stakes and stuff involved, but like it seems like a much more sort of like fun vibe that they're going for with these books.
Yeah, it definitely has like a 90s vibe too to it a little bit. Obviously,
Oh
it's
yeah,
probably
yeah.
set in the 90s, and you have like Captain Marvel's son, who I don't know who the fuck he is. I've never seen him before. I'm not as
And he's
versed
got a
in
totally '90s like
that
outfit, which I
jacket,
really love.
the
You know,
jacket
like
and
the
the
jacket and the
headpiece.
fucking weird hair piece and the hair sticking out the top. You know, like
Fucking ponytail, yeah.
yeah,
But no, like this book kind of, like I said, it made me kind of want to check out some of these other books coming out.
yeah,
Like there's an ad for that Storm book, set in the 80s with Ann Nocenti and Sam
yeah.
Cochian.
That piqued my interest because I love Anna Nocenti. I was a
I
huge
love her
fan
too,
growing
yeah.
up
The
as
Daredevil
the
stuff,
Daredevil stuff she was doing.
long
So you
shot.
know,
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a book that we'll talk about the week it comes out.
yeah, same. And it's like it's punk rock Storm, man. You know, like one of my favorite periods of Storm. So
I know, and I think this is like I feel like it's set in the. Did she have the mohawk when they were in Australia and stuff?
I think so. Yeah,
So I
like the
feel like
Savage
this,
Land
yeah,
and all that
yeah,
era.
yeah.
Yeah,
So this will be kind of cool, and that's when she was the leader. You know, you got the tan and brown Wolverine from back then. You got the Rogue.
you got the old school Nightcrawler costume. You know,
Yeah,
like
dude, I'm
again,
here.
yeah,
I'm here for
yeah.
that, dude. So that's
A cover by Alan Davis. You know, like it's gonna be great.
yeah. So I have to say I'm rethinking my opinion on these books that Marvel's been
Yeah,
doing. I think the only other one I've read would be the symbiote Spider-Man that they were doing with Peter David and Greg Land, where they were, when Peter was in the black costume.
Yeah.
I read the first volume of that, but the rest of them I haven't been reading. The Silver Surfer stuff didn't read. Now I kind of want to go read.
I like the Venom Lethal Protector series that
I remember you told me you read that. I did read the first issue of the second one, right?
Yeah, the one that the most recent one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a fun read, and it's definitely going to make me go check out the other ones.
There is one ad I want to mention real quickly too that piqued my interest. Is this ad for the Jonathan Hickman, Brian Hitch, like the Ultimates thing. They piqued my curiosity. I wonder what Ultimate Invasion #1.
Is that the first time you've seen that ad?
I mean,
or did you not know about the book?
I think I probably had heard about it, but it hadn't really stuck in my mind until now. But I mean, that's exciting, man.
Dude, I the minute that was announced, because I get those like PR emails.
I do remember now. I did see something on Twitter about it. Yeah.
So I get those emails from Marvel, like from the PR department, where they'll like announcements and stuff. And I remember the morning I saw that, and I was like, "Oh fuck yes, dude!" Because like I love the Ultimate Universe. I hate that it's gone. I get why they ended it, because it became like so far from why they started it, which was not bogged down by continuity, and because it was around so long, it's gonna be now it has its own continuity. But I'm glad we're gonna see Hickman kind of going back to the well, and kind of, I don't know what will come from that, if this is gonna be the final like say on the Ultimate Universe, but it'll be cool to see that, because he's the guy that ended it when he did Secret Wars, so. Yep. But next up, our last book that we're going to talk about, which we've talked about every single issue for the past, I don't know, 6 or 7 issues, Amazing Spider-Man #24. This book has been great, dude. It's funny because a customer came in, and he gets all Spider-Man titles, he gets all X-Men titles, and he gets Nightwing. That's what he buys. He doesn't buy any other stuff. That's the stuff that he collects. And I was like, ringing him up, and I'm like, oh fuck, you're a little behind. And then I realized, I'm like, oh shit, you haven't read any of this arc, so he hasn't been into the shop in a little bit.
Man.
So I was like, dude, this is such a great arc, and you're gonna fucking love it. I mean, obviously I hadn't read 24 yet, but starting with 21, we this arc of finding out what happened to Peter and MJ that got them to the point where Zeb Wells' run started in issue 1, and it's been such a fun ride going through it.
This was an exceptionally great issue too. I mean, Romita Jr. does some great work. I'm looking through. I had to read my digital copy from Marvel because my shop's box that contained the Amazing Spider-Man was damaged, so they had to reorder it. But I mean, there's those pages where like I'm trying to find it now, where like the way he's lettering them, like they're almost like panelless. There's that one image of like Spider-Man getting like pulled apart and twisted.
Oh yeah. That's like towards the end of the book. Yeah, I love that we're back at the Baxter building.
Yes,
because he got turned down by Thing and Johnny, the Human Torch, and then he comes back. So he's like, I just love that he's like getting a midnight snack, and then Reed and Sue,
and it's like a fucking huge sandwich, like.
And Reed and Sue come back.
Classic Ben Grimm stuff, man. Like.
And then you see Reed and Sue, and they're back, and he's like, "Oh, did you guys just get back?" He's like, "Well, then who's making that racket?" And then you flip, and it's just Peter, and he's stealing some fucking what is it called? A mini fusion reactor, and Thing gets mad, and so like Pete pops out, and I love that that Reed, he's like, "Hey, Peter," and he's like, "Are you stealing that? Why didn't you just ask?" He's like, "Well, can I have it?" And he's like, "Well, it's dangerous. I can't just." He's like, "Exactly," and he just fucking shoots the web in his face, and then Reed's like, "Computer, restrained shooter," but the computer's like, "Well, he's not. He's a safe person." So the computer is like going against what they're saying, and that in and of itself was hilarious to me. That like,
it's classic. Like I love when there's like a history of like Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and like humor shenanigans, like like even back in the day when Torch and Spidey were always trying to one up each other, and like. Peter, like with the famous like Fantastic Four uniform with the fucking bag on his head is a classic image.
Yeah.
So like there's a history of Peter and the FF's like dealings being slightly humorous, and like Zeb Wells, who excels at putting humor into his stories without making them like silly or like or stupid or anything like that. really does a good job with that scene. Like it makes sense in the plot, and it's also funny, and it's a nice moment of levity in a arc that so far has been really dark and intense.
Yes, yes. And you know, he like then he goes back to Norman because he's been working with Norman on getting back into this, you know, other realm where MJ was left. And especially because like, he's in a rush, right? Like what we said last time, the time runs differently in that world.
Yeah,
So he's got
which
to get
pays
there.
off at the end of this in a big
Oh
fucking
my
way.
god, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, so he's working with Norman, and Norman's even like, you know, thank you for trusting me. I love this. Thank you for trusting me with this. He's like, I don't, but MJ's out
Yes,
there
I love
alone.
that line. I was gonna talk about it. He's like,
Yeah.
I just don't have another choice.
Yeah.
You know, like
And then
it just
like,
shows you how
understood.
desperate Peter is. He's working with a man who's ruined his life multiple times, you know,
Yeah.
like probably the greatest enemy he's ever had, you know, like the person who has, aside from the burglar that killed Uncle Ben, no one has fucked Peter repeatedly more than Norman Osborn, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's important to note also is that this takes place a year ago within the current run, but he's still working with him.
Yeah.
So this interaction has led to him being able to, in some ways,
trust
Norman.
Exactly. So we're starting, you know, we're starting to see like the beginnings of it, but slowly we're starting to see how it all happened, and it's really good, man.
Oh hell yeah! You know, there's an ad real quick I want to mention too. This Fury book, that's something we'll talk about. The 60th anniversary of Nick Fury. So you get like you get the 2 generations of Furies. That sounds like a cool book. But I love this too. So like there's an explosion. And you see Kamala Khan, she's like, Norman Osborn, what are you doing in my city? Like, I don't know if that's gonna that pays off, because I feel like Kamala Khan ends up working for Oscorp, right?
She's working at Oscorp too. Yeah.
This is that panel you were talking about.
I love it, man. It's very surreal.
It's fucking insane. You see him getting fucking almost looks like he's getting ripped apart as he's getting transported to this world. And then
there's all these sequences that follow later as he's being pulled into that world, like all that stuff. I love it. I love the lettering. Like I love like the there's like a like that's where you start to see like Romita's like Kirby like cosmic like influence, you know?
Yeah.
Still completely his own, but I just love Romita Jr. as an artist, and like how the different periods he's had, and like even though like his art changes slightly, it's still very distinctly his. You can't confuse him with anybody else, but like he's really grown as an artist, and like there's some great sequences, and I love the final few pages of this, like the energy and like the
last two though, the last 2 pages where you know you have you have this stuff going on. Like we're gonna spoil. I'm spoiling. I mean, it's not really a mystery at this point because like we've been talking about it. You know, like MJ has kids, right? But just like the 6 panels of like, oh, you're okay, and she's in. She's like, Peter, you're okay, right? And he's like, how did you like? And like, they're not finishing their sentences, right?
The first clue to me was when you're reading it, she's like, Peter, is that really you? And I was like, I know time works differently, but like that when you say to someone, is that really you? You're implying you haven't seen him in a long fucking time, you know? So when she said that, I was already like, uh-oh, you know what I mean? Like,
but it's funny because like you would think there would be something to denote that she's older. Right? Like she doesn't look like she's aged. I mean, I don't know how you could depict that. Obviously, it's a comic book, but like even so much as like adding wrinkles, because based on those kids, dude, it's been some time, dude. It's been some time since
those kids have to be what? About 6?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, and then so you finally do learn as of right now, at least, they are her fucking kids.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, she just says they're my family.
I mean, the girl,
but you know what? I guess we could say like what maybe something else in terms of like these kids coming to creation are they clones? This just came into my mind. What if they're clones of Peter and MJ? Because maybe that's so like maybe not that much time has passed, you know, but they look like a little Peter and a little MJ to me.
Yeah.
So I can't be. I mean, that dude's got black hair that's there.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was like, is he the father somehow?
That's what I was thinking too, and like, who knows?
They were there a long time together. They could have fallen in love, you know, and like, she could have not known Peter was coming back, and this could be the only human she's thinks she's gonna see, you know.
And then like, does that mean even more time would have passed? Because that like, it's not like she just had the kids, right? Because if you add 9 months to the pregnancy, 6 years to
Yeah.
how old the kids, that's 6 years, 9 months. And then like obviously she would have waited a little bit before she decided to like get in bed with this dude, right? So then we're talking what, 7.5, 8 years, who knows at that point. That's why like I can't wait to find out the mystery of what's going on. And I feel like next issue is where we learn it.
Yeah.
Because
I love Peter's expression when she says they're my family. Like Romita kills it with the way Peter looks. Like he's just like, he's not looking at her, he's looking at, you could tell by the angle of his face, he's looking at the kids and like just trying, it's like you could see it on his face, like he's just trying to process all this information. You know what I mean? Like so much is it's again, you know, you went from the levity of that Fantastic Four scene straight to the intensity of this ending, and like one of the best cliffhangers I've read in a long time, and I cannot wait for issue 25.
Oh, same. I'm kind of upset because in the back in the letters column it said that that we're gonna be, instead of 2 weeks, it's gonna be 3 weeks in between issues.
I'm willing to wait if it's gonna be, and I also like that in the letters column you do find out that Ed McGuinness is going to be coming in to do, you know, another string of issues so that Romita Jr. can take a break. And I'm on board for that because I love Ed McGuinness and I love his Spider-Man too. So
yeah,
I love that they've been used. Yeah,
we got Kari Andrews doing a backup too in issue 25, which is kind of cool.
Dude, that's going to be fucking great.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of him. So.
I'm excited for the next.
I mean, we did Spider-Man Reign, so like I'm excited to see him draw Spider-Man again.
Same, yeah, dude. But yeah, another great week. All of the books we talked about are definitely worth picking up. Excited for next week. There's a couple books I know that are coming out. Like just off top, I know the Green Arrow #1 comes out. I love Green Arrow.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pick that up. Yeah,
one of my favorite characters, and Joshua Williamson is writing it, so I'm here for it. But yeah, excited for next week. Another great week of comics, a huge week, and I hope you guys dug these books. Pick them up, and join us next week with another episode. We'll be back, and make sure you follow Manny. His links are down below. Comic Lounge links are down below. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid goes up. And on that note, we're out.
See you next week, guys.